because they will not talk at all if you would accept any of them.
I absolutely agree. And we had some really bad offers on the table. We were like quite close to accepting them because we were literally running out of money, and we were like, if this is the only option for us to continue working on that, then we don't have a choice but to accept this super bad offer. So grateful that we didn't, because I'm pretty sure that we would not be here today. And with these offers, you get like this, this semi-good advice that, go start selling your product, show the product market fit, show us some traction, and some of these very standard things that people ask from you. But then at some point we met Icebreaker, and we met them through a mutual connection. So one of the founders of House, who actually also worked at Pipedrive, made an introduction there, and we hit it off like immediately. So we had a huge, an excellent match with them. And from the very first call we had with them, we realized that this is the sort of help that we actually need. So they were like always pushing us to think bigger, like, what if you didn't have any limits? Why don't you think outside the regulations and everything that's currently being done? What would be the biggest and craziest thing that you could actually build? And this is when me and Andros, we started to think outside the box, literally, like, we don't have to do things project by project or do these small market traction or product market fits. We actually need to create a new system. And with a proper VC backing, you actually can do these big and bold moves. So they were the ones who actually made a huge difference in our journey. So they stopped us from focusing on this small, tangible wins that you can have that might feel super important at this point, but like told us to focus on the big picture. Like, what is the ultimate goal that you want to work towards? And kind of like showed us how the big VCs and then how the actual big investors think, and what is the actual potential that you can, the impact that you can make on this planet if you actually start thinking outside the box. And it's kind of difficult to put it into words, I think, but just, there's like very local impact and it's very product related advice that you get. And then you have like this very global advice that you receive from a fund that actually has been working with some of the biggest or largest funds in the world. So it makes a huge difference. I love Icebreaker. I love the people there. They have been a huge help for us. Totally recommend. Alexia, Rasmus, I hope you're listening.
Yeah, and the things there, like one of the key things in early days is how to really make a choice that this software is not good enough. It can be just, the evaluation is not good, for example, it's usual, or like the fees, you just get some money, but this money will just, you will run out of money, what's next, So in that sense, that I think the Single.Earth, which is unique, has ignored usual, the cycle. Like in Estonia, still, like if you want to fundraise, I don't know, like even half million to have revenue. And then bear in mind, Single.Earth still had 100 euros revenue, because we are the only client who's ever had with our forest company. But the fact that you can fundraise from Estonia, 7.9 million is a huge vision. I think it's a changing community most likely here. That's common in Silicon Valley. You can just, I worked in Google, I was in Stanford, give me just like 10 million. And, okay, here's the money. But the fact someone who don't have track record, but okay, have a pipeline, this is important, can go and take that into the Estonian entity as well. It's also important. It's not our entity, it's not UK, it's an entity like Bolt has. Is most likely changing our environment here, which is super important. So, but okay, then you're getting Icebreaker, which is Finnish VC-fund. I don't need to anymore advertise them. They are very active here. This also is, by the way, it's late, but I have seen that more and more VCs again visiting Estonia. Like they have been here before COVID. Now we have this on and off, but even next week we have one VC in Estonia physically, because they want to see companies before they will start to fundraise A rounds. They want to meet them already, 6 months before. So it's happening. Like they're actually foreign investors are more and more active here. And the best example is beside me and Martin Henks, there is no one from Estonia who is invested in Single.Earth, isn't it?
No.
Exactly. So which is tell some things that you need to go to the right investors and say the story. But okay, so you basically get icebreaker into the board, and it was literally a year ago.
It was a year ago, yeah, last summer.
Yes, and then you start to move it to the bigger picture and changing bigger product. And then you kind of have this cap, and you started to fundraise in April or March or June. May, actually, May. Yes, in the May. So tell us, like, okay, because the fact that you, and I know today was like very news, Superfruit, it also now 9 million now was blown away. I know also a few rounds which happened in the same range, 7-8 million. But like, tell us exactly, because people are curious about the fact that in the right word you can do for the first meeting into the sign up to 6 days. This is exactly, I was telling you publicly already. I think Klaus has done similar thing, but with smaller amount. But usually, like, it takes months at least. But again, tell us, how did you exactly build at this momentum, and why you believe it's, why Single.Earth was so hot for this exact investor?
So the exact investor that we now work with, which is the EQT Ventures from Sweden. So they have a very clear vision that they want to back sustainable, diverse companies. So they are building like this future-proof world. So that aligns very nicely with what we do. So obviously they were already interested in what we do. And we had this amazing chemistry from the very first call. So they are like not just focused on the same values, but they are also very cool people. They are actually very nice people to talk to. Like, we had very fun calls with them. So we fundraised obviously through calls. So we've never met them in person until today. Hopefully we will do that soon. But during this call, we already felt the chemistry and the kind of not just wanting to invest money into somebody, but the feeling of wanting to make a change. And this is what we were looking for as well. So there's a lot of money out there. And I'm pretty sure you can work with them nicely as well. But we were like so much drawn to this vision and the way that they network and all of these people there can actually help us, and they actually want to help us. So they were super proactive in this, and we really enjoyed talking to them. So I think that made the trick. So we had like this 100% matching values and vision. So yeah, that's how it went.
How many different investors did you talk now?
I think we talked to about 30 plus investors. And I would have to say that very many of them actually said that they have these values. They want to invest in sustainability, and it was actually very motivating to see that it's not just some particular funds that invest in climate change or like this sustainable technology, but very many of these regular investors also have the sustainability goals and the diversity goals, which is very cool. Yeah, so I'm going to have to say that it's actually very nice to talk to these people. There are some very cool funds out there.
And you had even meeting with Niklas Sennström itself.
Maybe.
Yeah, she said, yeah, I know she can't comment all the things, which I also can't comment them as well. She's not telling me most. But yeah, the cool thing was that, like, if you have a product, actually it's not the vision, you should try to fundraise now. I don't know what happens after 3 or 4 months, but somehow this is the hottest time I have ever seen. Like beyond that, and I think that you hit that momentum, and I still blown away the fact that you had a call Tuesday, next call Thursday, and you received term sheet Friday.
I'm not sure I can comment on that.
And then you look like all weekend to think about that and sign Monday, but. I can comment one thing which I think you need. This is, I have never heard anything similar. You received an email on Sunday from the VC fund, which was like a few minutes long, from every person in VC fund telling why they want to invest in the company.
Yep, and that was like pretty amazing, and that's what I mean when I say that they really have the same values, that they're super nice people. So very humble to have a chance to work with them. And also to mention the opportunity to fundraise right now, I think we also had a huge tailwind in terms of like working on something that is related to sustainability and climate change. also using these blockchain and crypto world related technologies. And I think we hit very many buzzwords that very many people are interested or intrigued by. So I think like the combination and the right timing is what worked very nice for us.
But sorry, it's extremely aggressive relation. Aren't you afraid that maybe you will fuck it up, baby?
Of course. I think like that was like the first thing that actually came to my mind when we had actually closed everything and everything was settled and okay, we've done it. The first thought was that how on earth are we going to actually do everything? How am I not going to fuck this up? So we didn't have like this huge momentum to celebrate because it actually sounded like it's getting real. We really have to do that. And it's a huge like responsibility that we now feel of actually doing this.
But tell us like your hints or things that come on, you have basically 2 small kids. How you actually manage your life and go fundraise with like balancing your life between company and your personal life?
So first of all, having a husband helps. He takes a lot of his load and has been a huge help for me. So not just by watching the kids and doing all this stuff, but also being like there to support me because obviously like fundraising and building a startup is like an emotional roller coaster. And he has been always there to say like, come on, don't think about it, don't stress, you're doing great, you're doing good. And this is, I think, like the small things that actually keep you going. So I think like it's crucial to have support from your home. Otherwise, I think it's going to like not end very nicely, but it's going to be super stressful. So that's for granted. So yeah, having everybody at home on the same page as well is crucial. But to comment on the time management between kids and job, I think like for me, what has worked nicely was like, well, obviously I'm not a fan of COVID, but the fact that everybody has switched to home offices, I kind of didn't feel the obligation to go to the office anymore. So I had the chance to work from home, and you can like work from home, watch your kids, and do these things simultaneously. So you don't necessarily have to divide your time between work and home and husband and friends. You can actually like combine them and do everything simultaneously. So I think that works for me very nicely. And having the opportunity to manage my own time. So sometimes I wake up and I do some work-related stuff, and then I take some time for my kids, and then I work really late at night, and that is fine by me.
And today is about 14 people, or 13?
Something around that.
And you want to hire now like at least 50 people in the next 6 months?
Yes.
Okay. And
so we are hiring.
But the one thing which maybe helped you in the fundraising was at the same time when you was fundraising, you started already hire people. And one of the persons which I was blown away when you told she's joining was Hello Mengas, which I actually remember she opened a stock exchange in Estonia. And she worked in like McKinsey and Swedbank. And she was, I think that one of the things was Swedbank Group CFO and risk and others. How did you get someone from this finance industry into the craziest thing ever? Like, because for me it was like, if this person is joining, there has to be something.
Yep. That's a great question. So we got actually introduced by another team member who's also like a very badass person to have in the team, Jan Pisalu, who is has been leading the Estonian cybersecurity for years. So he actually introduced us to Hello. And yeah, I think that's how it spreads. Like team members recommend this to other people and invite other people to join. And then I'm also, again, humbled by the team. And if there's like this cliche that always hire people smarter than you, then I think I'm nailing it, because I think everybody on my team is so much more smarter than me that I think like it's working out nicely. And yes, the thing that you mentioned, like having or starting to hire people where you're already fundraising, was also something that an advice that we got from Icebreaker, that you just don't only try to survive at this very point in time, but you actually think about the future. So you always should have like a hiring pipeline and a vision, like if this is where we want to go, what are the resources that we need for that? And it's always also going to help you with the fundraising. So you have a story not just about the product, and about the market, but also about the team. How are you going to grow the team? What are the different people that you want to hire and who are already interested in that? So this has been quite an intriguing part. I love talking to these people and having like these very, very motivated people to join us. So that has been amazing.
So now I'm switching to questions because I have so many of them. When you registered, you must give some, and it seems we have very good experts. We also care about carbon offset and so on. So question is that carbon offset is actually lacking transparency. So and very limited in the effectiveness of emission reduction. What are some Single.Earth plans creating transparency and measuring the CO2 capture in the Biodiversity nation?
Okay, that's a very good question. And this is the criticism that carbon offset markets have received a lot, and that the problem is definitely there. So this is why we also want, why we use the blockchain technology to make it super transparent and traceable. So this is where technology can help us a lot. And we're not just building like this, trying to measure things the way things have been measuring it and show this in a super transparent way, but we're actually also building a research community. So we are not just using blockchain as a way to make everything transparent and traceable. We're actually building like a decentralized research community around what we do, so that all researchers around the world will have an opportunity to contribute to the carbon models and biodiversity models that we're using. So this is like the fundamental thing that we want to change in the market, so that it's not just done in a centralized way, so where you have like these governing bodies saying how things have to be measured or calculated. We want to spread this knowledge and crowdsource this and have it in a decentralized way.
Mm-hmm. Maybe a very connected question also is, what are some strategic goals for Single.Earth aiming by the end of 2020? Like next year, what do you want to aim? What's the goals? Because if you're funded, you have to have some crazy goals. What is your goals?
So the first goal is to open the marketplace and have this running. So by the end of this year, we're going to have like a probably closed marketplace, but yeah, by the end of the next year, we're going to have a public open marketplace for trading with the ecological value of nature. So I think that's a pretty huge thing to do, because it's an actual like an exchange.
Okay. The next question is by Tauri, that there is a saying every little helps. So if you would give one tip to people who are listening us here or through internet that is applicable daily on reducing CO2 emission, what it would be? And I know that you are 100% vegan. So should we all turn to vegans now? Or?
Yes. And this is literally the easiest thing you can do if you want to reduce emissions. I know everybody hates this advice, but it's like easier than you think. It's just like every time you want to take a piece of meat, you just don't. And that's how you want to do.
But then it's beside, I see that even Andrus TV eats meat, I know that. So your co-founder. So I know your team members were eating meat. Not now. But anything else beside that?
Well, I think start with that, really. Like, this is literally something that every person on this planet can do. So, and it's going to have a huge impact.
Mm-hmm. So the question is, will retail investors will have access to CO2-based markets? So this exactly next year will be done. Okay.
We are actually registering the first interest, or the first people who want to be a part of the pre-sales right now. So if you want to be there, you can go to Single.Earth and already register interest in joining the pre-sales.
But very good question by Andrei. How is it possible to have sustainable green fishery? Every business is focused to produce and scale more. So basically, it is already against the sustainability. Like all the economy is built on that. So how you can change it?
So that's the thing. Like, all the economy is built on getting the raw material out of nature. None of it is actually focused on putting money back to nature. And this is the connection that we need to change. Because until we keep nature protection and conservation as a separate thing from the economy, like as a charity, so something that we work with when we have some extra money or some time left or something like that, then nothing's going to change. But the time is up now. We really need to make a systematic change because this is not going to scale. The current economy is not going to scale. We are already like hitting the limits like many times more than we should. So the fundamental thing that we need to change is we need to connect nature and natural resources into the economy. So this is the only way we can actually make it change and to start to make the financial world support the conservation of nature. So that's the trick. So if you have money, financial incentive, this is how change happens in this world, unfortunately.
How many times people have told you this always to believe and change is impossible?
Oh, we have some great quotes like about how bad of an idea this is. I think like it was one of the journalists who said that what a strange idea, who later on decided to cover us eventually. Then we had, I think one of our favorite quotes is like, oh, you're doing an NGO with VC money. So that's also a great feedback to get. So I think we've had a lot of things that people haven't understood. I think that it has changed a lot during the past year because everybody starts to dig the carbon and biodiversity in all these markets more and more. So I think people are becoming more and more aware of these problems. Like when we started in 2019, it was kind of like something that people didn't actually understand. Now we don't have to start by explaining that nature actually sequesters carbon from the atmosphere and stores it within its biomass. Everybody seems to know that already.
But if you look outside, like now, or read news about California burning, Australia burning, and so on, don't we already run out of time to regarding climate change? Because like I don't think that the biggest like people who is denying climate change, if they just leave the house in, let's say, Portland, Oregon, they see that you are hitting 10 degrees more than it was last summer. This is extreme. So, but really, do you sincerely believe we still have even time to do that?
We do, and we actually also have the tools to make a change. So nature is actually the system that can actually cool everything down. But instead of like protecting the nature and letting it do its work, we just keep on destroying that. So that's like really fucked up. Like we have this one big mechanism to change all of that. But instead of like letting it do its work, we destroy that. So that's the fundamental thing that we need to fix. And I truly believe that we still can make a change, but obviously we need to cut emissions as well.
I think today EU was publishing new rules regarding cutting the carbon. Did you already read that paper?
Carbon taxes?
Yes.
Yeah, kind of familiar.
Okay. Any comments? What was?
I think there's like a lot of discussions around carbon taxes, around carbon allowances, and how it's actually working. So there are like different trading schemes, and you can have, for example, the cap and trade system, and then you can discuss whether that's actually making a difference when you boost the carbon prices. So yeah, I think that's like deserves another topic, but I think like eventually what we must achieve with all these big goals is getting the sequestration potential in nature and the emissions on the same level. So once we are able to balance that, we're actually good.
I know that your existing product really has covered all the world, and you can see in every square meter how much is producing oxygen. So how many landowners would be joined? And exactly question is from Lise, it's very good. How do you get the landowners to join, and what would require make changes for landowners? Would they have major reason not to join?
So the major reason not to join would be if you want to, clear cut your forest, for example, or even if you want to do these carbon offset schemes that are actually done around the world, where you start by clear cutting your forest and then replanting a new one, saying that it sequesters a lot of carbon. So we don't do that. Sorry. So our standard there, or what we want to see is that we create those tokens once 100 kilograms of CO2 is sequestered in biodiverse nature. So once the biodiversity is lost during the process, we don't actually emit those tokens anymore. So that's the point. But one of the big goals of ours has always been to make these markets accessible for all landowners. Because right now it's very complicated for landowners to actually join the carbon offset markets, because it has a lot of manual certification, it takes a lot of time, it's also expensive. So it can cost more than 10,000 euros just to get a certificate to start trading with carbon. And this is why we're building these big global models where eventually landowners can just come, claim their land, verify their ownership, and we already have the knowledge about how much their land sequesters carbon, what's the biodiversity that's there, and they can start trading.
Zenit, you're one of the most interesting owners or like users from Philippines and Brazil. Can you tell how did they found you? Because I think that the one thing is important, Estonia is so tiny, so whatever you do is zero effect if you focus tiny micro markets. But as I understand, you have already some things going on, or at least first steps in Brazil and also in the Philippines. Can you a little bit tell that?
Yeah, we have different projects currently being onboarded. So we have something in Brazil. So it's a virgin rainforest, a beautiful site, a huge land. So hopefully we'll get them to join us very soon. And other things in the Philippines, in South Africa. So very many cool projects around the world. But during the time when we have been working with them, we have also realized that there's so much infrastructure missing there. So, for example, how do you verify the ownership in Brazil or the Philippines? So all these different lands or countries have their own different regulations and registries. So there's a lot of things that we need to figure out to make it like super automated and scalable. But we definitely see potential again in technology and helping solve these problems.
Yeah, I think the connected question which you almost like now replied was exactly how somebody who owns the forest earns money and how you be sure that this is the owner. But this is exactly, and the next question is how you make sure that they will not cut the forest.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So what we do is we create those tokens in real time. So we actually look at the satellite information, we look at the models, and every time we know that 100 kilograms has been sequestered in nature, we create those tokens. So we don't pre-create them, we don't pre-sell them. And that's fundamentally different from many carbon offset projects that sell these tokens or credits for years in advance. And yeah, this is how it works.
But how many competitors are doing pretty similar thing now in the world? Because there are some platforms.
I think there's like a new one popping up every month or every week, maybe. So there are quite a lot of competitors working with natural climate solutions and carbon, and I think it's great. I think it's great because this is how we are able to teach the market that this is something that we need to monetize and something that we need to work on. So each one of them has a different angle. So I think we are probably one of the most like holistic ones. So we are tackling very many different parts of that. So there are very many who are focusing on very specific parts of the customer journey. So for example, the certification or the marketplace. So we try to do everything in one unified user experience.
It's a very good question, but Evelyn, what's been your biggest struggle as a CEO?
Oh, that's a great question. My biggest struggle as a CEO, I think like team probably. I think team is always like something that you just have to nail so hard. So like starting from who you work with, who's your founder, do you actually click? How do you, distribute your tasks? Who does what? Who talks to whom? I think this is like something, but I think that has actually worked out quite nicely with me and Andres. So we kind of have clicked quite from early on. Yeah, so I would say that we have these struggles, but different struggles at different times. So eventually, I think like somehow, I think the stars have aligned pretty nicely for us.
Mm-hmm. So we try to start to wrap it up, but I can still take a few questions, and if you're thinking to ask from here, I will ask one that is here also. So what do you think exactly? Question by Jan, what is your most interesting challenge for the next 6 months and next 3 years?
Okay, next 3 months is definitely going to be scaling the team and also growing the company culture, because obviously coming from Pipedrive, I have this big vision or feeling of what it has to feel like to work at a very motivated and very inspirational company. So trying to have that in at Single.Earth while scaling the team and doing this with very fast hirings. So this is the big challenge for the next half year. So the next 3 years is going to be like, how do we actually disrupt the economy? Like, I think this is the 3-year goal, to actually make it work so that the big institutional investors, like the big players in the market, would start to do things the way that we do. So in terms of investing in nature, but also like rethinking the way carbon is monetized. And also, yeah, I think in 3 years we will have hopefully succeeded in making a few disruptions here and there.
Great, I have still a great question here, but let's start from back. So you just shoot us and I will repeat what you asked that our people also in stream would have. But please.
Yeah, so I registered in your piece that we're adopting, so it's going to be like a Bitcoin or Ethereum or about 10,000%. Should everybody buy or will you have some sort of stable coin mechanism?
So the people in the stream, the question is exactly what will be, how you would launch a token. Is it like Ethereum or Bitcoin, which goes up and down? By the way, my friend told it very good time to buy Ethereum, so thank you for the question. So Edgar is here now. But how you would launch it? Is it stable coin? Because the challenge is that you are going to the semi-crypto market, as I understand, and it's not even launched yet. So maybe it's too early question, but yes, please.
That's a great question, and it takes a long answer, but I'll try to keep it short. So the point is that although it is a carbon token and traded in the crypto framework of the marketplace, that is actually tied to the carbon and the real world. So there are carbon prices that we can use to make it less volatile, and the fact that it's actually tied to the actual real world will make it more stable. So definitely our goal is not to create a super, fluctuating price, because our goal is to actually not make it just a trading coin, but also something that can be used. So it has to retain its connection to the carbon prices in the world, because it's going to be used eventually as a compensation or the contribution to the climate goals. So in this sense, it's not just going to be a trading coin, it's also going to be something that actually has a use case in the real world.
So it won't be that if you buy in the beginning for the 10 euros, then after a few years it's 2,000.
Depending on how the carbon prices and everything go, it can be 2,000, but it's not going to be fluctuating too much from the other carbon prices in the world.
So the more heat and the more world is burning, the higher is the price.
This is actually true. This is true. This is something that is going to happen. So if you want to balance the carbon emissions and the sequestration in nature, then it means that a lot of these emissions have to be cut. So a lot of companies are going to have to stop emitting, but those who are continuing to emit CO2 are going to have to buy those tokens or some kind of compensation, and this is going to be pretty expensive.
So this means that in the emergency time, we should do lockdown of 5 years of the world.
I think it's a great idea. I think it will work.
Okay, do we have more questions? I have one here, which is, yeah, please.
I had a question about the model, and in particular, you mentioned at some point that you're looking at youth, but also biodiversity. And that's so my question would be, how do you measure biodiversity, which is much more complicated than 6%? You have got equivalent and so on, but how do we compare tigers?
Very good question. So, question: how to measure biodiversity? How you will understand what's the difference and so on? Oh my God, go on.
That's a very good question, because this is the question that actually different universities are tackling around the world. So how we look at biodiversity or how we measure that is based on the habitats. So if it's an intact habitat, then it's like a 100% potential biodiversity in this area. If it's something that has been manipulated by people, destroyed by nature, then it's like 0%. So everything will range in between, like being super intact and untouched by people to being like destroyed by people. So we basically look at biodiversity from the habitats perspective.
But if you are like exactly, you have some burnt land or whatever, and you're going to reinstall the things, this is against of your model?
No, that's a good thing to do. What we are against is like burning down the forest to replant a new one, because that like on paper sequesters a lot of carbon, and you basically like seem to create additional carbon sequestration based on that. But
how you can fight this then?
We look at the satellite information. So
daily. You have new
weekly, yes.
Weekly. Yeah. Oh, okay. Luckily, actually, the tree is growing like 10 years. Okay, that's true. So I will take the last question, and still have time for the networking and asking. And she's still here, and also team members is here. So Single.Earth team members, raise your hands. So you have questions. This is the people, and this is the crazy scientist in the first room. So the last question is very good. So is that green tourism, how we can basically we can travel without making so much bad for the nature. Like if you fly, this is the bad thing. And most likely logistical cost is one of the most damaging. Is it humans or whatever thing, another thing? So what is your take on that? Like how we can do more green travel, not like I fly to Brazil to go to the forest or not forest but jungle. What is your take on that?
That's a very good question. And I think like one thing that we can, again, all do very easily is like travel less, like take less of these 1 week trips anywhere, because it's like a huge impact. It's going to be a huge impact because flights and flying is one of the things that we don't have a very good solution or alternative to that. So these are the transportation emissions are some of the toughest to tackle. So fly less.
I think that there is really a startup is fundraise heavy money and say the first plan is to fly electrical planes from Thailand to Helsinki. And they believe they can do it in 5-10 years.
Yeah, hopefully, but these are probably just very small planes.
No, like and it's very short time.
Yeah, short time. It's going to take a lot of time to actually get the technology there.
As we have so many people who follow in crypto and blockchain markets, that's the last question. So the question is, what blockchain looks more suitable for your project? That's a good one. And I just see already how Andrus is laughing, but you have to reply.
Okay, I'm just gonna reply that the more suitable blockchain for us is going to be based on proof of stakes and not proof of work, which is like super resource heavy.
Okay, but that's it. Let's give a big hand for this speed streamer. And I truly helps your example of this, like being extremely passionate and following your dream and changing already many rules in the Estonian ecosystem. It's amazing. And bringing real Silicon Valley feeling to here will also inspire so many other people who is maybe today thinking and so on. And one more time, I know there is some lady from Ukraine who is was applying from Lviv here, and maybe she want to work for a company. So, so anyone who feels that these values is something that you want to do, I think that frankly, they need to join startup which has this dream, most important vision, and it can also pay, by the way, your salary at least next like 16 months, I hope so. So maybe this is the best time to join. So she's still here, you can go and speak with them. Thank you.